Hello, I'm Simon Palin and you're watching the Consumer Quarter, where we take a look at what's happening in the retail sector and the issues affecting you as a consumer. In this edition, the threat to retail posed by online shopping is not as big as first thought.
Wouldn't explain more than half of the weakness in retail, so there are other factors at play.
And Google finds new ways of gathering information about its users.
They may know more about you than you do yourself.
Sounds a bit like stalkerish, to be honest with you.
But first, here's a good party fact. 47% of the total Australian population are now on Facebook, and growth in new profiles shows no signs of slowing. Google still has a larger monthly audience, but people spend up to 3 times longer on Facebook than they do on Google. Despite that, selling goods on Facebook is showing limited potential. A number of high-profile retailers in the US have recently terminated their Facebook storefronts. Experts say the site is being embraced by users as a place to socialise, but not as a place to go shopping. Well, Facebook earns 90% of its revenue through advertising. Last year it got around $3 billion in global ad revenue. Now that compares with Google's $36 billion. Google is trying to increase its ad revenue. The online giant has recently implemented a new system to gather more information about its users, which will in turn allow it to target ads more effectively. This move has sparked strong opposition from consumer and privacy advocates around the world. Google has begun taking information from users who have accounts with sites like Gmail, YouTube, or any of Google's other 60 services. That data is now being combined with information gleaned from web searches. Critics say it's all aimed at increasing Google's ad revenue.
It makes them able to charge more to advertisers because they say that they can target the ads more directly.
But Google says there's benefits for users too.
For example, just say you do a lot of searches for cooking and for recipes. With the updated privacy policy, that means that we may be able to surface recommendations for cooking videos on YouTube.
Data collection by companies like Google and Facebook is troubling privacy advocates worldwide.
And they may know more about you than you do yourself.
Governments and organisations can demand access to the information through the courts, and there's also a risk the data could be stolen by computer hackers.
It's kind of scary to just think of how many, in about 5 years' time, like what's it going to be like then?
Does that mean I just have to make anonymous accounts and not put my name anywhere? I don't know.
But Google is trying to allay any fears.
Our commitment to your privacy and also to the security of your information, stays the same.
If you are a Google account holder and you don't want your web search history kept, there is a way out. Go to www.google.com/history, sign in and click Remove All Web History. Internet companies say the user is always in control, but privacy advocates say many users don't have the time or the inclination to understand all of the options. And internet companies like Google and Facebook are embracing the rise of smartphones because, of course, smartphones allow more regular access to the internet. New research shows Australian smartphone sales are set to soar over 40% in 2012, and it's a point not lost on Australia's Communications Minister.
Smartphones were launched 5 years ago. They are forecast to represent 90% of local phone sales in the next 3 years.
That's Stephen Conroy there. And around the world, the smartphone market is changing very quickly. A growing range of smartphone companies are trying to outsmart each other as they vie for market share. More than 1,000 companies have gathered in Spain to showcase the latest advances in the industry.
It's tomorrow's technology, gadgets of the future, game changers, a bumper crop of new devices from 1,400 exhibitors. There's a lot at stake here, as companies big and small show off their wares, hoping to earn a share of a very lucrative but crowded market.
Well, it's obviously our biggest show ever. We're really excited. Some new devices, of course, quad-core phones and tablets will be exciting. We'll see a lot of NFC, so using mobile to pay, to open doors, that kind of technology.
Looking to lure back market share from rivals Google and Apple, the once dominant mobile maker Nokia is hoping to revive its fortunes with a new smartphone.
This is our new latest flagship camera phone device, equipped with 41 megapixel sensor, giving never ever seen image quality.
Samsung is also debuting its main draw card for 2012. Its smartphone converts into a video projector. Home movies anywhere, anytime. Remember slide nights? Faster models, bigger screens, devices impossibly thin, impossibly powerful. Features allowing consumers to control their televisions with their phones are also put to the test, as the major players like Sony, Motorola, HTC and LG pitch their technology. The biggest absentee is Apple, which traditionally stages its own gadget launches.
Well, the holiday sales are now well and truly over and the figures are in. Consumers appear to be spending again, with Australian Bureau of Statistics total sales up 0.3%. People are out and about buying food and wine, but other retailers have little to celebrate. The ABC's Emily Stewart reports.
Consumers are finally spending again, but that's eating some retail profits.
So they're happy to go out for a meal, but perhaps not happy to spend money on a new sofa. So we're seeing experiences trump things, and that's what we've seen in January again.
But the best indicators, household goods and department stores, are again seeing a slump. And while Harvey Norman has seen some uplift in sales due to the closure of competitors, it too continues to struggle, posting a half-year profit of $129 million, down 2% on the same time last year.
There's no incentive. If I build a shop at the moment, I buy a block of land, I build a shop, the day that it's finished, the valuer will come in and value it for less than it cost me to build it.
Jerry Harvey says he'll now consider focusing on Malaysia for future expansion. And while many blame the rise of online shopping, analysts say it's not a major factor.
It wouldn't explain more than half of the weakness in retail, so there are other factors at play. We think issues like travelling abroad, pressures from the cost of living, and just the general level of deflation are other factors that are holding back retail spending.
That's Craig Woolford ending that story there, and his sentiment has been echoed by a new survey showing online sales account for less than 5% of total retail sales. The National Australia Bank has released its inaugural online retail sales index, which tracks online spending by Australian consumers. Now, despite fears of the high Australian dollar sending consumers to offshore websites, the index actually shows that domestic retail accounts for almost 3/4 of online sales. Well, the supermarket price wars have been blamed for the factory closure of biscuit maker Unibic. Unibic has been producing biscuits, cakes and pastries since the 1950s, but it was recently placed into voluntary administration. The factory is now set to reopen after the administrators found a buyer for the company, but generally the Food and Grocery Council says Coles and Woolworths are placing big pressures on manufacturers.
The level of pressure on Australian food and grocery manufacturing companies has never been higher. We're seeing significant profit downgrades from a number of people, and a lot of this is due to the downward pressure on margins that Coles and Woolworths have really put into the industry as a result of their price war.
That's Kay Carnell there, and in the meantime, Woolworths has announced a 17% slide in its half-year profit. A fall in earnings at Big W and its electronics stores weighed on the result, while its food, liquor and petrol businesses grew by around 6%. And despite Woolworths' overall fall in profits, the company remains a big money spinner. Many don't realise this, but it has about $800 million a year in free cash flow. It all starts at the checkout, where shoppers have to pay up front, but typically the supermarkets themselves don't have to pay their suppliers until 2 to 3 months later.
Well, it usually means that the best retailers in the world run a treasury function and they make money out of having that money.
So what they've effectively got, brilliantly, is they have 75 days to actually play with billions and billions of dollars.
Retail analysts say it may help the big supermarkets to achieve good prices for consumers, but the cash flow merry-go-round is also something the big supermarkets can use to maintain their dominance and keep potential rivals at bay. And finally, Australia's toy business is strong. It's worth over $2.5 billion a year, but even it has been hit by the global economic jitters. The local industry has staged its annual toy fair, with over 7,000 retailers checking out the latest gizmos. We sent our biggest kid, Neil Woolrich, to have a look.
Thanks to the global economic downturn, toy makers and retailers have had a case of the wobbles in recent years. But here at the Australian Toy Fair, they're hoping that 2012 is the year that bucks the trend and put a spring back in the toy industry's step.
Well, there's no question the toy industry, like most sectors, has gone through some tough times. The last quarter of 2008 was diabolical, so to speak. 2009 was sort of a pretty tough year for the toy industry, but we've actually been very fortunate. We've seen some growth in the years 10 and 11, and last year was actually a very positive year for the toy industry.
With 7,000 retailers looking over 1 million products, the annual Toy Fair is the industry's most important event of the year.
What it does, it's one time of the year where we can actually put the trade, that's all the little toy shops, they can come together and they can see the offering from everyone.
All the buying for toys for the whole year is done here. So the toys that you see in store here, or in this trade fair at the moment, are in fact the toys that our kids will be playing with come Christmas time.
But Paul Hodgson from the Australian Toy Association says the biggest threat to the toy industry, like many others, is online retail.
The local retailers here can't in fact compete with those online retailers due to the fact there's no GST on those, and toys predominantly are small products, and of course they're under the $1,000 price point to attract GST.
And another concern for suppliers is when retailers go direct to factories in China to purchase stock.
To lose one of your major retailers, and some of these people here have lost them totally, would have a serious effect on their business.
Despite those challenges, industry players remain optimistic, and the early signs are that 2012 is looking like a better year.
I've always thought that toys are a little bit recession-proof. Even in hard times, people will always look after their children. So, although everything can have hard times, I think toys, people will want kids to have fun, and that's what it's all about.
If you've got the hottest toy in the business, no downturn will stop you, because the kids have the whinge power, and of course that drives the industry and drives the parents crazy.
But it may not be until Christmas when these eager spruikers know whether they've got the latest craze on their hands or one of the thousands of products that simply gathers dust on the shelves.
That's the ABC's Neil Woolrich getting his hands dirty there. Well, that's all for this edition of the Consumer Quarter. Thank you for watching. If you've got any feedback or even story ideas, please feel free to get in touch online on Twitter @SimonPallon, or on Facebook, search for the Consumer Quarter page and click like to stay up to date. And I'll see you next time.